If your career is costing you your time, your freedom, and your family, it's time to do something different. Look, I am sharing with you how you could create a business that funds your freedom and flexibility. Let's go ahead and get started. What's up, y'all? It's Tammy of Make It a Double, a two-time recovering business owner. And I work with seasoned professionals, helping them turn their expertise into a business that funds their freedom. All right, so today we are talking all things about business, building a business that gives you time freedom, right? So I am super excited to talk about this subject because this gets into a little bit of my backstory. For those of you that have not been following my channel, you will learn a little bit about me along the way. Let me share a personal story with you about how I began my path of entrepreneurship. Back in the day when I was working a 9-to-5, I was working long hours. I was feeling like I was stuck. I was always sacrificing a lot of my time. And at the time, I was a single mom raising 3 boys. I knew that having a 9-to-5 was not going to be enough. I wanted more freedom to spend with my babies. I needed a lot of flexibility to spend with my babies and the rest of my family. I also knew that I wanted a financial income that could sustain all of that. And so I knew that I needed an additional income stream because I could not just be dependent on my 9-to-5. That was not happening. That was an introduction into trying to figure out how I could best leverage my expertise. I knew I had something special. I thought I had something that people would buy. In the work that I did, I knew that most B2B companies needed this skill set to build their business. For those of you new to my channel, I have a company called Intuitive Group, and we did proposal writing. I knew that skill was a very unique skill. I had years of experience in it, saw a lot of success, and knew this was something I could turn into a business. So I remember the exact day that I decided I was going to make some extra money. I was sitting in my cubicle, stressing out because I was in the process of buying a new house and needed more money for the down payment. And you guys know how stressful that could be. Overtime was not an option for me. I knew I was a single mom, so I didn't have a husband. I had to figure out real quick how I was going to leverage this skill set into some sort of income that would help me prepare and have a comfortable life for me and my boys. I went into hyper mode of trying to do research, right? When the internet was still early, trying to figure out how I was going to make this work. Sometimes attrition forces you to get creative. In my case, I threw caution to the wind. Look, I didn't have a plan. I didn't write a business plan. There was this thing called Craigslist, and they had a business section. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and throw my services on there. I wrote a description and paid my little, I don't know if it was $5 or $10 to post an ad or whatever, but I paid the little money and then hope for the best. Crossed my fingers and was hoping that I would get a client. And y'all, guess what? I actually got my first client on Craigslist. Look, I knew that sometimes you just have to step out on faith. You know, you got a skill, you got a passion. I tried to combine the two because I really love proposal writing and I love the written word and I love trying to convince people to buy something. And with that, after I got my first client on Craigslist, you know, then came many others, right? Like I began to obsess about the process. I needed to streamline the process. I was juggling my babies. I was juggling my 9-to-5. So I knew that I needed to put some processes in place so that I could continue to scale. And I wanted my freedom back. I didn't want to continue to trade my time for dollars. So I knew that I needed to get serious about putting some technology in place and really beginning to think about how I can scale my business with intention. And so that's what we are talking about today. I want to help you build the flexibility that you need so you can take your skill set that you've been honing all these years and position it and package it in a way that you can begin to get paid for it. So let's break it all down. The first thing we need to do is get crystal clear on what time freedom looks like for us. I knew what it looked like for me, but you definitely need to make sure that you understand and that you've defined it for yourself. When you're thinking about time freedom, you need to be thinking about how you can design your schedule around your priorities. Take some time to be intentional about that. Also, define what type of flexibility you want to have, right? Because for everyone, it's very different. I knew that I love to travel. If you like to travel, that might be something that you need to consider. If you want to spend more time with family, that was also something that I wanted to do. You might need to think about that as well. If you pursue hobbies, and also think about that. Once you take on an endeavor, especially a business or generating additional income streams, it is going to initially take a little bit of time to get things stood up. Like, we don't just flip over and start making money like that. Of course, unless you're investing in the stock market. But if you're not doing that, I would say be very intentional about how you want to define your time freedom. Time freedom isn't just about working less, right? It's also about working smarter. How will we create systems that allow our business to thrive so that you're not tied to it, 24/7? So when we think about building a lifestyle that is aligned with our business, we need to think about it from the perspective of a vision. What does freedom look like for you? You should be asking yourself questions like, where do I want to work? How much time do I want to dedicate to this business? And what kind of lifestyle do I want to create, right? Let's get crystal clear on that. For me, freedom meant that I could take a long trip with my babies and still run my business and not have to be worried about things. For you, it might mean when you're on vacation or anytime after work, what kind of time do you want dedicated to this business, to this endeavor, to this income stream? Just make sure that you have a really good vision on what that looks like. Number two, we got to think about the model we want, y'all, because all things are not equal. So when we think about flexibility, let's think about it from a business model perspective. Are we trying to do consulting? Are we trying to do coaching? Are we trying to do digital products? Are we trying to have some sort of online community? Or are we trying to teach courses? We need to be intentional in thinking about how we want to do that. With each of those different types of business models comes a very different system that you need to put in place. So think through your business model, right? Now, you might already be at your capacity, right? So maybe you want something a little bit more passive. You may not necessarily want to do coaching or consulting. So you may want something that's a little bit more packaged. In any of those scenarios, let's just think about what we want to achieve and how that business model is going to align to whatever it is that we want to achieve. Number three, let's leverage our systems and automation. Again, when you're thinking about your business models, you really need to be connecting the dots between what kinds of systems you're going to need to put in place to support any of those business models. So you're going to be thinking about things like a customer relationship management tool, right? What kind of CRM are you going to have in place? Because you're going to need to be communicating with your prospect clients. So what kind of CRM are you going to need? And how will it need to function for you and your business model? You're going to need some sort of scheduling software. If you're doing consulting services or coaching services, you want to be thinking about some sort of scheduling software that can help you save time. We want to try to automate as much on the back end as possible, especially when you're doing more service focused business models. And then think about what are those things that you can outsource. I began to really scale my business when I began to get serious about the outsourcing functions. I had created our ways of working or standard operating procedures. So I could take that piece and give it to someone. I could give it to someone on Fiverr or Upwork, and they would know exactly what they needed to do. And I could also do a quick Loom video to show them, right, and give them a nice little example of what my expectation was when they took on that task. Number 4, let's make sure that we are prioritizing high value actions. What does that mean? It means that you need to be concentrating on the most impactful stuff, not the nitnoid tasks of the day-to-day. That means building relationships. That is where you need to spend the bulk of your time, because that's how you're going to get paid. If you don't do anything else, make sure that you are building relationships. Sure, you can create content. Yeah, you can develop the products, right? Because we need something to sell, obviously. But I say you obsess on building your relationships, because that is the thing that's going to keep your business fueled. That is the thing that keeps your prospects coming through your sales pipeline. Because if you don't have sales and you don't have customers, you don't have a business. Avoid all the busy work. Get crystal clear on high impact things that move the needle and make you money. And then lastly, let's make sure that when we build this extra income stream, we are embracing the lifestyle that we want, right? So that means making sure that you integrate those hobbies, that travel, your personal passion, right? The things that you love. See if you can build those into your business, because that's what keeps you waking up every day loving that extra income stream or that business. I remember people always ask me, Tammy, were you really passionate about proposal work? I was, which is kind of weird, but I'm a highly competitive person. What proposal writing does is it allows you to use both your analytical brain and a little bit of your creativity. You mesh all of that up, and there's also a competitive component to it. And all of that I absolutely love. Did I have the opportunity to infuse a lot of my passions into that kind of work? Well, not really, but it did allow me the freedom to work from anywhere, right? And so as I travel, and I love international travel, I can work from anywhere. Now, sometimes the time zone thing gets a little difficult, but you know, me having passion about this work, allowing me to be what I call untethered, allows me to work from anywhere. If you are early in your entrepreneurial journey, I hope you found this information valuable. I created a Discover Your Superpower quiz, and I would love for you to take it. It's linked in the description. It only takes 5 minutes. The reason I created it is because sometimes we struggle with the skill set and passions that we have. And so what that quiz does is it helps kind of match your skills with your passion, right? So as you are building your additional income stream or your business, you can be really crystal clear on what it is that you can offer based on your skills and your passion. So I will see you in the next video. I'm Tammy of Make It a Double, and I'm out.